The relationship between the United States and Iran has been marked by tension and mistrust for decades. The US-Iran conflict escalated dramatically following the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which saw the overthrow of the US-backed Shah and the establishment of an Islamic Republic. The hostage crisis at the US Embassy in Tehran further deepened the rift between the two countries. Since then, the relationship has been characterized by periods of heightened tension and occasional attempts at rapprochement. The rivalry between the US and Iran extends beyond their bilateral relationship, playing out on a regional stage with implications for countries across the Middle East. From Lebanon to Yemen, the two countries often find themselves on opposing sides of regional conflicts, supporting different factions and vying for influence. This fundamental distrust fuels the cycle of animosity and hinders efforts at resolving their differences. The Middle East holds immense strategic importance for the world, primarily due to its vast oil and natural gas reserves. Key shipping lanes, such as the Strait of Hormuz, connect energy producers in the Persian Gulf to markets in Asia, Europe, and North America. The narrow Strait of Hormuz, situated between Iran and Oman, is a particularly critical choke point, with nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passing through its waters daily. The strategic importance of the Middle East's energy resources and shipping routes has made the region a stage for great power competition. The US, recognizing the vital role of Middle Eastern energy in the global economy, has sought to maintain its influence in the region to safeguard its interests and those of its allies. Iran, located on the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, has the ability to disrupt the flow of oil through this crucial waterway. This potential leverage gives Iran significant influence over global energy markets and adds another layer of complexity to its relationship with the US and other global powers. The US-Iran conflict encompasses deep-seated ideological and religious differences. The 1979 Iranian Revolution brought to power a theocratic regime led by Ayatollah Khomeini, who denounced the US as the Great Satan. This revolutionary ideology, based on a strict interpretation of Shia Islam, stood in stark contrast to the secular values espoused by the United States. The US, with its emphasis on democracy and human rights, has often criticized Iran's human rights record and its suppression of political dissent. The religious dimension of the conflict is further complicated by the Sunni-Shia divide within Islam. Iran, a predominantly Shia Muslim country, is often at odds with Sunni-majority Arab states in the region, such as Saudi Arabia. The ideological and religious differences between the US and Iran have created a deep chasm of mistrust and animosity, making diplomacy extremely challenging. The US-Iran conflict unfolds against a backdrop of shifting alliances and complex regional rivalries. The US has long-standing security partnerships with Israel and several Sunni Arab states, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Egypt. These alliances are rooted in shared security concerns, particularly regarding Iran's growing regional influence and its ballistic missile program. Iran, facing pressure from US sanctions and military presence in the region, has sought to cultivate its own network of alliances and partnerships. It has strengthened ties with Syria's Assad regime, supports the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and maintains close relations with Hezbollah in Lebanon. The complex web of alliances and rivalries in the Middle East exacerbates the US-Iran conflict. Each side views the other's actions through the prism of its regional alliances, often leading to miscalculations and escalating tensions. The issue of Iran's nuclear program has been a major point of contention between the US and Iran for over 2 decades. The 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran Nuclear Deal, was a landmark agreement aimed at curbing Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. However, the Trump administration withdrew the US from the deal in 2018 and reinstated sanctions, arguing that it was not comprehensive enough. Iran responded to the reimposition of sanctions by gradually reducing its compliance with the deal's restrictions on its nuclear program. The potential for Iran to develop nuclear weapons is a major concern for the US, Israel, and their allies. It could trigger a regional arms race, further destabilize the Middle East, and increase the risk of a catastrophic conflict. The nuclear issue remains a major obstacle to any future rapprochement between the US and Iran. The international community has played a significant role in attempting to manage the US-Iran conflict and prevent it from escalating into a wider war. The United Nations Security Council has passed numerous resolutions imposing sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program and other activities. Beyond sanctions, there have been various diplomatic efforts to ease tensions between the US and Iran. European countries, in particular, have played a key role in trying to salvage the JCPOA and find a diplomatic solution to the nuclear issue. The US, under the Biden administration, has expressed a willingness to re-engage with Iran diplomatically and potentially rejoin the JCPOA. The quest for stability in the Middle East hinges on finding a way to manage the US-Iran conflict. While a complete resolution of their differences may seem like a distant prospect, finding ways to manage their rivalry, prevent miscalculations, and build a modicum of trust is essential for regional and global security. The US-Iran conflict is further complicated by a long history of mistrust and animosity dating back to the 1953 coup d'etat in Iran, which was orchestrated by the CIA and British intelligence. The coup, widely seen in Iran as a humiliating foreign intervention, left a deep scar on the Iranian psyche and fueled anti-Western sentiment. The legacy of the 1953 coup continues to cast a long shadow over US-Iran relations. Many Iranians view current US policies, particularly its support for sanctions and its military presence in the Middle East, as a continuation of its historical efforts to undermine Iranian sovereignty. The hostage crisis at the US Embassy in Tehran following the 1979 revolution further deepened the rift between the two countries. Overcoming this legacy of mistrust and finding a way to move forward based on mutual respect and understanding remains a significant challenge. The US-Iran rivalry plays out not only on the diplomatic stage, but also through proxy wars and regional conflicts. Both countries have supported different sides in conflicts across the Middle East, often exacerbating existing tensions and fueling instability. In Syria, Iran has been a staunch ally of President Bashar al-Assad, providing military and financial support to his regime throughout the country's devastating civil war. The US, on the other hand, has supported various rebel groups opposed to Assad, although its involvement has been more limited. Yemen is another battleground for the US-Iran rivalry, with Iran backing the Houthi rebels and the US supporting the Saudi-led coalition. The war in Yemen has caused a humanitarian catastrophe, with millions facing starvation and disease. The involvement of the US and Iran in these regional conflicts has had devastating consequences, fueling violence, instability, and humanitarian suffering. The future of the US-Iran relationship remains uncertain, with the potential for both further escalation and a fragile path toward détente. The Biden administration's willingness to re-engage diplomatically with Iran offers a glimmer of hope, but significant obstacles remain. Successfully reviving the JCPOA or negotiating a new agreement will require both sides to compromise and demonstrate flexibility. Beyond the nuclear issue, addressing other points of contention such as Iran's ballistic missile program and its regional activities will be crucial for achieving a more sustainable de-escalation. Building trust will be paramount. Both sides will need to move beyond the legacy of mistrust and past grievances and engage in good faith diplomacy based on mutual respect and a willingness to understand each other's perspectives. The US-Iran conflict is one of the most complex and enduring geopolitical challenges of our time. Rooted in a tangled web of historical grievances, ideological differences, regional rivalries, and strategic competition, it continues to pose a significant threat to regional and global stability. Finding a path toward a more peaceful and cooperative relationship will require both sides to demonstrate leadership, pragmatism, and a commitment to diplomacy. The stakes are high. The alternative, a further escalation of tensions, a potential nuclear arms race, and the risk of a wider regional conflict, would have devastating consequences for the Middle East and the world. It is in the interest of both the US and Iran, and indeed the entire international community, to seize every opportunity for dialogue, diplomacy, and de-escalation.